Craig here, today at St. Luke's. And this past weekend, I went camping in the California Motherlode country, the place where the gold rush started. And I went camping and I tried gold panning. I had watched videos on gold panning. I had bought my gold panning kit from Amazon to give me all the essentials I need to go out and find gold. And then went out and did it. And to my surprise, I think I succeeded. I actually found some gold. But the problem is that the gold, I guess there's just like gold everywhere, but it's really, really small. And you pan it and then you do the thing and then there's a few little specks of gold. And the idea is that you scoop up the specks of gold and then eventually you're able to separate it from everything else and you have a little bit of gold. Not enough to actually make a living at or anything like that. You know, it's like, yay, I made $10 worth of gold today on my vacation. But the challenge is particularly separating the exceptionally fine gold from the exceptionally fine black sand, which is heavy and close to the same weight as gold, so it doesn't separate out as nicely. So essentially, the problem is you've got all this gold, but if you try and separate it out, you know, like it'll just take forever and you're tapping or swirling in your gold pan. And essentially what you're left with is a bunch of sand filled with a whole bunch of microscopic gold. And you have to go back and read the YouTube videos on how to do it. Now, this is interesting because it parallels the reading from last Sunday, where Jesus said that the wheat and the weeds all grow together. And of course, that's just a way of saying, you know, people who follow him, who are faithful Christians, and people who aren't, they all grow together. And so if you try to separate the good from the bad, you just make a big mess. You tear up the wheat while you're going after the weeds. And with just this very common sense thing of Jesus, which a number of Christians, particularly St. Augustine, I won't go into it. You could go to my sermon on St. John's live video, which goes into it in more detail. But for those of us in the tradition that comes through St. Augustine, Catholics, Orthodox, well, actually, the Orthodox don't really like St. Augustine, but that's another story. Episcopalians, Anglicans. It's, if you come to us, you're invited to follow Jesus and to be a disciple of Jesus and follow Jesus deeply. But it's not a one-off thing where you give your heart to Jesus and then you're a good Christian or a real Christian. And all those other people who don't do it the same way you do aren't real Christians or good Christians. And in this tradition, which came through the Puritans, it became important to know who was a real Christian, because we wanted the church just to be full of real Christians who really follow Jesus, and not just full of people who, you know, are sort of faking it. Whereas Jesus' wisdom says, no, the church isn't a place, you know, or as has been said, is not a museum for saints. It's a hospital for sinners. Jesus' church is filled with people who follow Jesus deeply and faithfully, and it's full of people who just mess up all the time and aren't really sure and aren't convinced. But we keep reminding and calling back to the cross, back to the altar, back to the Eucharist, through the waters of baptism, to remind ourselves what we promised in the waters of baptism, to follow Jesus. And when we mess up, in the words of the great wisdom of that blues tune, you pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and start all over again. So, welcome to St. Luke's, welcome to St. John's. We are full of sinners, just like every other church. But one of the nice things about being Episcopalian is you can admit it. You don't have to admit to being perfect. You don't have to pretend to be a real Christian so you can be a good witness to your non-Christian friends. It's just living life authentically, really, wholeheartedly, and following Jesus as best we can, together, in a hospital for sinners where we get better and pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, start all over again. Thanks, God bless, and have a good day. Keep an eye out for the gold. It's all around you.